So welcome everyone to CAVAL and Skilltype's webinar today on developing your library skills using data. First of all, Wominjeka, I'm joining you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people country, where I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands across Australia, where we live, learn and work. We acknowledge and celebrate the inherent strengths of Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander and other First Nations peoples and communities and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, sky and culture. We pay respects to their elders past and present, and I would also like to welcome and extend my respects to other First Nations peoples attending today. I would like to encourage you to share which country you're coming from, attending in the chat. So your tour guides for today is myself, Sarah Germaine, the Deputy CEO of CAVAL, and Tony Zanders, the founder and CEO of Skilltype. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to put it in the chat. So Tony and I first met way back in 2017. We look much younger there, but we came together to discuss the values and principles of open source. This screenshot was dug up about 2 years ago when everything started to come full circle for not just myself, but for CAVAL as well. We had decided to go ahead with Folio and also reignited a conversation with Tony at VALA 2020 conference to talk about the benefits of skill development and the needs to invest in our industry to ensure that we had the right skills to deliver our library strategies. So CAVAL as a member organisation has a key strategic focus of collaboration, and we engage with industry partners and thought leaders to develop services, programs and initiatives to support growth and innovation. Since 1979, we played a key role in supporting digital platforms, including technical support for many library software companies that may not necessarily have a presence in our time zone. CAVAL has also been a primary provider of high quality and collaborative professional development for not just our members, but for the broader library community. With this in mind, a platform focusing on skills and staff that is designed to be collaborative, modern and sophisticated means that we are able to tailor vocabularies to match the Australian and Aotearoa New Zealand local environments, rather than having to rely on alternative and more generic training systems. The platform also provides a scope for libraries to drive development and ensure technology is consistent with the goals and objectives of the library community is a key success driver of CAVAL's strategy. We regularly support projects designed to offer better and more cost-effective solutions for not only our members, but for the broader library sector. Collaboration is in our DNA, and we instantly saw the benefits of partnering with Tony and the team at Skilltype. The Skilltype team focuses on global citizenship, empathy, and the pursuit of excellence and openness to collaboration, which makes them a right fit for CAVAL to partner with, and we look forward to seeing what the future holds. As part of a suite of already established help desk services, CAVAL is providing first-level support and services for the Australian and Aotearoa New Zealand Skilltype communities. A special welcome to the University of Wollongong, who was our first Australian library to sign on to Skilltype. We have begun our journey on onboarding the library, and it's been fantastic so far. I'd like to now hand over to Tony to continue with our presentation. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Tony Zanders. I'm the founder and CEO at Skilltype. As was mentioned, since 2018, we have been developing software exclusively for libraries to manage their skills using data. This was inspired from two sources. One, an over decades career working at companies like Exlibris and EBSCO, where we were developing solutions to manage the library collection using data and to make the collection more accessible. I started to have conversations with our customers around a similar but related question. Could we take some of those same approaches to better understand our workforce, to better understand our people, to answer more strategic questions, such as, Should we be recruiting people from outside of the organization? Or perhaps should we be reskilling or upskilling people from within? Uh, and how do we make those determinations as a supervisor, as a line manager? Um, and how do we become less dependent on the HR departments at our universities or within our cities, if you're a public library? And how do we start to take ownership over the people under our purview in their career development? And so those conversations were extremely rewarding. Um, we created a dialogue that wasn't taking place within the industry. I had to travel far and wide to see who else was talking about this, and that's what actually brought me to the VALA conference in 2020, where there was an initiative kicking off by the name of Digital Dexterity. You may have sort of remembered that initiative between CAVAL and CAL. And I just had to travel here to be a part of that conversation, to be a fly on the wall, to hear what was taking place down under. And I was so inspired to hear about this movement towards creating ambassadors on libraries, campuses around the country for the purpose of helping develop those digital skills within those communities. Fast forward to today, just give you a quick update on where we are as a company before we do a live demonstration. We're now in use at over 300 libraries in 8 countries. We are continuing to grow as libraries around the world are asking questions about the workforce. We're realizing we're not just the collection and our services, but the skills we have empower those services. And we need to become more strategic there. So I'm going to share my screen and introduce you to Skilltype. We're going to do a live tour of what a typical experience is like for the library as an organization. And we're going to segue into people's individual experience as employees, because it's also used as a tool to manage one's career in the GLAM sector. Okay, I'll remind you to please ask questions in the chat. Our tour today should take about 20 minutes, and then hopefully we have time for a robust discussion, either about how this can be used for your individual careers or as managers and leaders within your organization. So allow me to introduce you to Skilltype. So Skilltype is a cloud-based platform. There's no need to download or install anything. We actually hesitate to use the word implementation because that tends to give people a lot of nerves. We prefer to use the word onboarding. And you're able to onboard to Skilltype in between 1 to 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the size of your library. We do work through libraries. In other words, we're not available to an individual to sign up on their own just yet. And each employee, though, has their own personal dashboard. So what we're looking at right now is my dashboard that's helping me give some context for my skill development journey. What do I mean by context? Well, it's simple to tell everyone, hey, we encourage you to do training and development. It's important to do. It's another thing to say, where should I begin, right? And so the traditional way is to say, hey, everyone, here's everything. Good luck. What we prefer to do is to give people context for what are the skills I actually need to focus on based on the job I have, along with where I work, my institutional context, right? My employer may need different skills from another library, right? So these are important insights that we try to present to each employee at the point of skill development. And so each month we'll be reminding you with nudges on things that you could do to manage your skills hygiene. We're also keeping track of your skill development progress in terms of the number of hours you've spent training this calendar year, how many trainings you've completed. That represents trainings completed on Skilltype, but you can also log third-party trainings that you're completing elsewhere. On the right, we're trying to present each person with the skills that are trending within their communities. If you haven't traveled much outside of your library or to connecting with other professionals in your area, it's oftentimes hard to understand what are the trends taking place unless I'm able to go to a conference or network. So we're trying to bring that to every employee, regardless of their ability to travel far and wide. And lastly, I'll show how we analyze the skill gaps within any library, and we can present those missing skills to the employee. The goal here is to help people become more proactive in helping you close your skill gaps. Right now, there's a really heavy burden placed on managers and supervisors, oftentimes who are not trained in human resources to encourage skill development. And the goal of the software is to help distribute that labor evenly across every employee by giving them this personal context. Underneath, we have quick links to the organizations we belong to. I'm a member of the Skilltype organization. I'm also a member of the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. You can have multiple memberships within Skilltype because in the library world, we have multiple personas. You may be employed by a library, but you may also be active in a professional association or another type of community. And you can have many of these relationships within Skilltype for the purpose of skill sharing. Each week, we also present you with personalized recommendations based on your job, along with your interests. I've received these following 4 events that I may want to register for. These are curated just for me, coming from over 100 training providers within the GLAM sector. And I can register for these events through the link provided by Skilltype. And lastly, I also receive on-demand resources that are personalized to me. We have a database of now over 11,000 GLAM sector trainings coming from that curated list of strategic partnerships. I can click onto any one of these resources and begin watching it straight away. I can do a few different things with this resource because this was designed for busy professionals who may not have 1 hour and 25 minutes to complete this training at the moment. And that's one of the differences between Skilltype and a learning management system. LMSs were designed for full-time learners or students who may have 4 or 5 consecutive hours to consume a training because that's their primary focus at that moment. We designed this for professionals who may not have 30 minutes. You may get interrupted when you're at the reference desk, or you may have to be pulled into another area. So we have tools for you to keep track of where you were. You can bookmark this for later, similar to Netflix or streaming services, building sort of a Netflix queue of trainings for you. And that way, if it's Thursday morning and you do have an hour dedicated without any interruptions, rather than spending that hour finding something interesting or relevant, you can just come to your queue and start working straight away. You can also add this to a playlist, similar to Spotify or Apple Music. You could sort of organize a sequence of trainings along a certain theme. Underneath, we are linking this resource to the related skills and competencies, facilitating an organic discovery method for training and development. So if I click onto a related skill, such as the future of work, I can now dive deeper on this topic. What we're viewing now is called a topical feed. And the way Skilltype organizes the training from around the GLAM sector is by topic or skill. So we're currently viewing a feed on the topic of the future of work in libraries. And we're pulling from over 140 sources of training. These include library conferences around the world, professional associations, library consortia that produce training, along with vendors such as Ex Libris or SpringShare or Folio or EBSCO. When we bring in that material, our metadata team catalogs it with the related skills and topics, and that's what allows us to sort of organize it in this way. On the right-hand side, we can filter out or in certain things. Most of the material in Skilltype is open access or Creative Commons license material. However, There are fee-based or proprietary trainings as well. For those, I'll go through a quick example by clicking onto the Browse tab. And in our Browse tab, we're able to see a better sense of the full breadth of skills and competencies within SkillType. I'll give a quick example on sort of a fee-based or licensed material and how we represent those. And then I'll talk more about the competencies that we've included in our vocabulary. So LinkedIn Learning is a popular example of a licensed resource that we can't embed straight away. You have to have that either personal subscription or an institutional subscription, but we're still indexing that material. We haven't brought in all 9,000 of the LinkedIn courses because all 9,000 aren't relevant for the GLAM sector, but we have brought in over 400 that are relevant. And when we're doing this, we're able to not embed that course, but we're deep linking you to that course within that platform. We do this for dozens of proprietary fee-based training platforms as well. I'll click onto the AI feed because it's quite popular right now. SkillType is one of the best ways to get introduced to the topic of artificial intelligence within libraries. And these resources are different from just searching for this within Google. These, again, are peers, experts within our industry who are educating us on AI within our context, within the GLAM sector. And so a lot of that may get lost in translation is able to be not lost by accessing and introducing your team to this through SkillType. I'll use the Browse tab for one other point, which is SkillType has both skills and interests that may be relevant for the GLAM sector, but also products and services is another way that we sort of distinguish. And so it's a great way to learn more about products and services prior to contacting a sales representative or prior to contacting a peer library. Many of the presentations here are from peer institutions who are actively using these materials and databases and platforms, and they're presenting on their experience. And so it's a great way to evaluate new products and services as well as traditional skill development. I'll give a shout out to the Folio community. We regularly index the available training materials on this platform as well. We are big supporters of the open source community. Folio was my main project when I worked for EBSCO, which is how I met Sarah and came across CAVAL. And so we're excited to help distribute these types of materials to a global audience and increase their usage. So as I'm using SkillType and I'm browsing around and I'm completing trainings, I'm saving them, I'm organizing them, I'm sharing them. All of this can be accessible through your My Training tab. So if I create a playlist, it will be accessible through the My Lists tab here. I can also click into that and I can see that particular sequence of trainings within that list. I could share this list with my colleagues. And they're really easy to create, and I can create an unlimited number of them. And so if you have an in-house expert in your library who is constantly being tapped for their expertise and they have to email everyone and answer all the questions, this is an easy way for them to create a cohort-based learning experience, sort of a hub for their peers. If you subscribe to that list from them and they add a new training, you'll be notified that a new training has been added. And we're organizing those notifications within SkillType so that you're not clogging your email inbox and having to figure out, where did I see that link for that particular webinar? I remember it being interesting, but who knows where it is at this point. What we can also do from the My Training tab is we can see our bookmarks. This is sort of that Netflix queue experience. And if you can sort of first come here to sort of log in and not waste time accessing things you are interested in. If something has been shared with you, it will be listed on the Shared With Me tab. And the more communities you belong to, the more recommendations will be shared with you for those different contexts. So we're trying to establish sort of a one-stop shop, a single stop for your training and skill development here. As you complete things, we also organize that very neatly for you. You're able to download that training record into a CSV file that is very robust. It even lists not just the title of the training and the date and timestamp that I completed it, along with the skills it was pertaining to. And it would say that Amy or Deb spent 18 hours this year learning about ebooks. And so it documents that level of detail. You can download this report according to a time sequence. So if it's for your annual performance review, you may want to see the last 365 days. If it's just sort of a 90-day check, you can sort of filter for the last 3 months. The View tab is akin to your browser history. And so you may not have interacted with a training, but if you viewed that page, we sort of log that for you in the View tab here. I'll now segue to the organizational experience, and that'll help sort of pull the whole picture together here. And so, as I mentioned at the outset, we do exclusively work with organizations. And so the software is procured through an annual subscription through the library, and the library makes that available to all their staff. I'm going to do a sort of demonstration for a library that belongs to a consortium. And that'll help me sort of kill two birds with one stone. So what we're looking at now is an organizational profile. Part of the onboarding process for a library is to create a profile that captures the skills and competencies and priorities for your organization. Skilltype works with academic and research libraries, public libraries, medical health science libraries. Our smallest customer is about 5 employees. Our largest is about 700 employees. The needs and priorities of these organizations widely vary. And so this is a way to capture what your priorities are at your particular institution. Firstly, you're able to select strategic priorities based on your strategic plan. We've analyzed over 300 strategic planning documents and created a controlled vocabulary for strategic directions. A part of our partnership with CAVAL is to ensure that these represent the strategic planning and priorities for your region. And that's an ongoing process as we work with new libraries in the region. If something is missing from this list, any of our users can make suggestions and give feedback to our metadata team, and we review these on a weekly basis. The second portion of the profile for the library deals with key skills and competencies. I should mention that at this stage, each library onboarding a skill type starts off at about 80% completion for the profile, because we have templates based on your size and type, and we have a good understanding of generally the types of skills and priorities you have based on how large or small you are and what your focus is as an institution. Your job as a leadership group is just to sort of refine those rough edges. And so you're able to come into the profile and choose the key skills and priorities for the library. This is not meant to be comprehensive of all of the possible things you could be training on. It is meant to deliver some tension around prioritization. Why? Because in the real world, there is limited time and limited budget. So if we wanted to instruct and guide our workforce on how they should be using limited time and budget to do skill development, this is a great way to filter that out from the leadership team. So you'll see all of the types of skills we use within research institutions, within libraries. At this point, it's quite robust and granular. You'll see the different sort of skills required to manage a research workflow, all of the work we're doing within the data environment, the traditional things like cataloging and metadata management, even around the archives world, repairing books and restoration of sort of, rare books. We also get into soft skills and business skills that may not be taught in library school, but they're very much so used within our organizations today. And that could be fundraising and development, or grant writing, things like public speaking, or marketing and communications. There's a host of IT-related skills as well, whether that be software development or digital preservation. If something's missing, again, please tell us. At this stage, the vocabulary is crowdsourced from our users. And it's a wonderful experience to see the sort of ideas coming from a global community at this stage. You are limited to 100 of these. And so again, by design, your team will be experiencing that tension on what do we trade off? We've hit our limit. And so because we want to facilitate that real world experience. And lastly, we have a similar section for products and services because each of our institutions have a different combination of products and databases and platforms. And so you're able to capture whether you're an Ex Libris shop, for example, maybe you work more with the EBSCO products, maybe you're using sort of the SpringShare suite of products. Perhaps you're a Microsoft organization or you're a Google organization, right? And so you're able to sort of reflect the types of skills each employee should be exposed to and developing, right? And from this view, each employee can launch into that experience to begin consuming training on any of these topics, right? I'll jump into web accessibility for a moment, right? And so this is sort of the skill type experience for each employee. I'm now going to continue walking through the organization's experience as we bring the tour to a close. So once we've established our profile, now it's time to bring in our colleagues. And all of that is managed through our directory tab here. And so there's a few ways to do this. You'll be assigned an onboarding manager from CAVAL or Skilltype to walk you through this process. But at this stage, the best practice is to create an invitation link and to have that link posted to your intranet, posted to your LibGuides for employees. You can email this to people. This could be in a new employee onboarding manual. And so it's sort of like a rolling onboarding for your workforce as people leave your organization and join. This is a persistent link to give them access to your skill type organization. You can also manually invite people individually or perhaps in bulk. There are some use cases where that makes more sense. This could work in tandem as well. Regardless, each person receives a personal invitation to the platform through this directory, and they go through a simple 5-minute onboarding process. Sometimes it can be completed in 1 minute because all they're doing is telling skill type a job title, and they're also choosing a job category. Skill type is not collecting any personally identifiable information aside from a person's name. The software platform doesn't actually retain that information. We abstract it away, and we only know your user ID. And so everyone has the right to be forgotten within skill type. The platform is compliant with GDPR and other privacy regulations. So if I choose a job category, say, for example, I work with cataloging and metadata, what's happening in the background is skill type maps the competencies we saw on the prior screen to this job category. So if I'm an employee, perhaps I'm new to my work, I don't know where I should begin training, skill type will begin making recommendations to me based on my job category. And so it's able to be used by entry-level colleagues along with more seasoned colleagues who know very well where they should be focusing right now. I should also mention that this category is not restrictive in nature. In other words, if I select a category, it doesn't prohibit me from accessing all 11,000 resources, right? I can still complete that process and I can jump right into the experience. I can begin searching straight away. Say, for example, I search for diversity. There's a ton of resources with diversity, either in the title or abstract. So I need to be more specific. Let's click see more resources. And I can use some refinements and filters on the right. Discovery platforms call them facets. I never understood why, but I can click narrow by skill and I can get more specific with what I mean by diversity. Perhaps I'm looking for diversity not in the HR context, but maybe I'm looking for diversity with regard to collection development, and dealing with sort of indigenous materials, for example. That narrows it down because I just added on that secondary skill to go further. I can now focus it even further by dealing with open access, right? And so by using our search infrastructure, you're able to do this for on-demand resources, along with upcoming events as well. This month, perhaps in about 30 or 40 days, we're launching a new feature to allow you to do this for people. And so we're launching a people search where you can find experts who have these skills, and you can add multiple skills to find people who have that combination of skills. And this will be sort of an opt-in approach for people who want to be discovered for this way. So as we start to conclude, I'll jump to the Skilltype organization because I want to show some portions that will include some PII, some personally identifiable data. So now that we've invited our workforce, one of the things we can do is we can organize them into teams. And Teams is a really neat tool that only requires me to enter a name, choose a manager or 2 or 3 for the team. And I can also describe the team's function. As a library, you can create up to 300 teams. Teams can have up to 600 people. It's a very flexible tool. And we can create these for every department across our library, the different branches of our organization. We can also create them for committees or communities of practice, right? As an employee, I can belong to multiple teams, okay? But what it's doing is it's capturing the skills and competencies for that particular group. And it's exposing that data to the people who have to work together. So I can click in and see who else, what skills my colleagues have. I can view their profiles. I can learn more about what they're interested in learning as well. I could see what product experience they have in case we're going into a project together and we need to divide the tasks. Maybe I don't have a person in mind, but maybe I have a problem I'm trying to solve, and I can click onto the product experience. Perhaps I broke a spreadsheet and I don't know how to fix the errors in the cells. So I can see who knows about Excel within my team. And I can type in that product or that skill, and Skilltype will give me a list of people I can go to for that issue. And I can click and email them straight away. You can't message people within Skilltype at this stage. We've decided to outsource the communication to your platforms. We may have messaging in the future, but at this moment, it hasn't been requested by our customers. So I can see sort of skills, product experience. I could also see what my team is interested in. I can sort these interests by most popular, and I can learn new things about that group and say, wow, I didn't realize we had this many people interested in analytics. Perhaps we can do a lunch and learn or an info session about analytics. We can also do cohort-based learning through a team. We can create lists of resources that are shared with all of us, and we can discuss them in our monthly meetings. And so it's a way to sort of create like a book club of sorts for that particular team. And it can be led by anyone on the team. Okay. As a manager for that team, I also can see the training activity for my staff, right? This is not visible to my peers and colleagues and direct reports, but it is available and visible to the manager. And so we're able to see the training activity according to a time sequence. Perhaps I'm preparing for a one-on-one meeting with my direct report, and I want to see the training they've done for the past 30 days. Perhaps it's time for annual performance reviews, and I want to see the past 365 days worth of training material. And I can download that data to manipulate in Excel as well. 2 more things I'll quickly show before we open up for questions. One is the training tab. And so you're not limited to the database within Skilltype. Many of you are producing your own trainings. You also have access to training from your universities or from your other umbrella organizations. What you're able to do is you can add that content into Skilltype, and you can limit the audience for it. By default, it will only be visible and made available to members of your organization by default. This could be an HR policy. This could be an orientation video for new employees. There's a number of resources you can bring into SkillType, describe it with that skills vocabulary, and we will ensure that it's presented to the right employee within your organization. So this is a different model from saying, hey, everyone, here's everything. Good luck finding something. And we're now able to say, if you're in this job role or interested in this, SkillType is presenting those needles in the haystack just for you. You also can make that resource visible to the global SkillType community. This is a great way to promote research you're conducting, presentations you've given. We're sort of creating an alternative to the call for proposals process, which sort of gatekeeps who gets to share what knowledge and when. We don't arbitrate. If you're a user of SkillType, we trust that you're in the position to help inform and educate your peers on your matter of expertise. So this is a great way to increase visibility for any topic that you're wanting to get feedback on or share. The last thing I'll show is for administrators of the organization. This is not visible for everyone, but something SkillType prides itself on is analyzing the skill gaps within the library. And this is done through our talent audit tool. This tool is, we describe as sort of set it and forget it. You don't have to really manage it. It's managing itself as you manage your profile, which captures the skills you need within the library, and you can update this whenever you wish. And it's comparing those needs you've established against your inventory, the supply of skills and expertise that's being brought in by the data from your employees. And it's comparing those two data sets to categorize those skills into 3 categories. The first is called acquired. So we've said we needed certain skills, and the good news is we have people with those competencies and we can see who they are right from this list. The second category is called interested. So we need certain skills, and the good news is we have employees who want to learn those skills. And this is helpful to find candidates who have that ambition. Perhaps their job title today may not inform me that they were even interested in this topic. But now we're able to give those folks opportunities for growth and development. Within that, we can sort that list of people by their training activity within SkillType. Because just because someone's interested in analytics or AI doesn't mean they have the same level of ambition or drive as their colleagues who are interested. So we can sort of use that activity to sort those folks. At the top right, we can see whether SkillType has trainings available on that topic. There are topics that we don't have training available on, and you would have to go outside of SkillType to find training. But we will tell you whether we do right from this view as well. And lastly, we have a tab called Missing. And Missing is addressing, we said we needed certain skills, but unfortunately, no one has them. And therefore, we're missing those competencies, and we're sort of listing those in that third category here. Now, this is the final thing I'll show today, and then we'll get into Q&A. But back from the organization's profile, you may recall from a library that we're able to associate your organization with a consortium. So say you're a member of CAVAL, or you're a member of CAL, or another sort of network of libraries. We're able to associate you with that organization, thereby sharing a set of your skills data up to that umbrella organization level. When we do that, 2 things are taking place. One, we are able to, from our missing skills, see, are there other organizations that I partner with that are a part of my consortium that have those skills? So maybe we don't have them, but we're in an agreement with this other library who can help us in this area. Now, we're not showing you the particular employee's personally identifiable information who has the skill. We're simply saying that this library has one or many people with the competency, and you should contact the owner of that organization to discuss further. This could just be, I just need to speak with someone for 20 minutes to ask them a question before we submit a grant, or a number of use cases here to collaborate with. Um, the other thing that I'll show, I just noticed the question that came up in the chat around privacy, um, and then we'll jump right into Q&A. Everyone has a personal settings panel whereby you're able to access a data and privacy tab. And from your data and privacy tab, you're able to manage which organizations have access to your data. You're able to see clearly who does and who doesn't. And so just because a vendor's on Skilltype or a library's on Skilltype, it doesn't mean that they know you exist. It's very much so a closed experience until you decide to opt in and share your data with that organization, right? So it's all opt-in. You can also quickly see who can see the profile or training activity. How's my data being used? You're able to download all of your data. You're also able to delete your account. And if you do so, we won't have a record that you existed. We will sort of disambiguate. We'll only know that this user had this activity at some point, but we can't tie you back to that organization. Okay. There are other little bells and whistles to show, but I'll pause now to see what types of questions you have, and I'm happy to reshare my screen and dive deeper on any topic.
Thanks, Tony. We've had a couple of questions in the chat. The first one's from Danny Kingsley. I'm interested in where and how you locate your training resources. And I'm assuming you're familiar with the digital research skills at Australasia, and I'll send you the link. That was the first question.
Yep, perfect. So when we onboard a new library, the first step is for the library to complete a questionnaire whereby they're describing their sources of training that they pay for, that they traditionally use. That then informs our training team to either identify the copyright for that material, whether it's a Creative Commons license or open access. If so, we index it straight away and we create sort of automations around that. If it's proprietary or fee-based, we have sort of a second decision tree. We either approach the vendor to sign an agreement to load their material in, and they then receive their own dashboard to manage their content. We also can, if it's sort of internal to the library, they then are sort of taking ownership over loading it into Skilltype. Over the course of doing that for now 5 years, we've now brought in over 140 training providers worth of content. It continues to grow as the community grows. And so we're so excited to finally be in Australia and New Zealand and start to learn more around your sources of training. But the way I would view Skilltype is sort of a blank canvas. As a library, you can make it what you wish. We have libraries that are using this to map all of their universities' sort of HR training, and each employee has a personalized training plan within Skilltype. And so it's helping increase the discoverability of those resources and the usage of them as well. So you can bring your own content, but you don't have to. And that's sort of been the process so far.
Cool. You got a thumbs up from Danny, so that's good. So one from Richard. Do you or have you considered working with library and information degrees, academics in the discipline to align with students who are looking to pursue careers in the sector?
Yes, we have. We have started to work with iSchools and sort of master's degree programs, certification providers. I'll be honest, Richard, the response has been a bit mixed. Depending on who's leading these organizations, some folks may not understand whether Skilltype is a threat to them or if it's a sort of something that will help them. we do have a number of forward-thinking folks who see the opportunity, and we do have agreements with them that are sort of two-way agreements. They're providing their students and degree seekers, certification seekers with access to the platform, but they're also able to see that data set from Skilltype on what are employers looking for, right? Because there's a gap between what sort of theorists and practitioners are curating as the priority should be versus what are managers and supervisors who are on the ground with their communities, what type of skills do they need, right? And so what we're excited about is closing the gap between what employers need and what degree and certification providers are training on, because it's not always aligned. And there's not sort of a strong feedback loop between those two important communities. So our role is to create an ecosystem where they can all live. And as a result, that's why we seek to partner with all members of the ecosystem. But it hasn't been a cakewalk. It is sort of a journey.
Thank you. Another one from Danny. Is the people tag option you described as kind of a find an expert sort of thing, or and then you find them to ask them if they can do training for your staff?
We don't arbitrate what the intent for communicate them would be. You're certainly welcome to ask them and contact them. They are opting in to share that contact information with you. It could be for a training at your organization. It could be to hire them as a consultant. But we aren't in the sort of business of arbitrating it as much as allowing you to discover people who have that set of expertise. We're curious to see, once it's launched, sort of 6, 9, 12 months afterwards, what are some of the more popular use cases? But we'll be learning just as much as our community will with it.
And what kind of integrations are there with HR systems in terms of the annual review process?
I don't think we have a single programmatic integration at this stage in terms of API integration with an HR platform. The way that our customers so far have found utility is through exporting their data out of Skilltype into a CSV file, which can be imported into an HR system. We also have received imports from an HR system, either to bulk invite staff. So it depends on what the intent is. Around the performance management process, the typical use case is where an organization has employees download their Skilltype training record, which is a CSV file. And that file is typically attached to their annual review. I should mention, though, that that's not necessary to use Skilltype in that way. We have a spectrum of use cases. And on that spectrum, on one end, you have organizations that subscribe to Skilltype as a tool that is made available to staff. It's not mandatory and it's not a part of the performance management process. It's just sort of a resource they want to make available to staff. On the other end of the spectrum, though, we have libraries who have embedded Skilltype into their policy framework. It is a part of annual reviews and annual goal setting exercises. I've seen travel policies that now require an employee to rule out training within Skilltype prior to being approved. So there's a number of on that other end of the spectrum, right? But those are local decisions that the library makes on how they want to use Skilltype. We don't have any one way that we promote.
you. Is there any other questions from anyone? Feel free to unmute yourselves if you do have any. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we've got some time.
As you're germinating, I will share my screen. I pulled up an example of one of our partnerships with a school of information. We love working with schools of information. We love giving students and degree seekers access to real world training, exposing them to products and services and workflows. And so if there are sort of these types of organizations around Australia that are interested in learning more, it's a different pricing model for schools and for these sort of information trainers. And so happy to share more info on there. We also work with vendors who may want to manage a user group within SkillType as a way to sort of connect and increase engagement among users of a specific product. Now that's a growing use case for SkillType as well.
So
But libraries are our main customer base.
So there's a question here from Catherine that I can answer. So it's how are licensing costs calculated? Is it US dollars per month or annual? We do provide an annual fee per FTE. So Tony might be able to add that students and student workers aren't counted in that FTE, so they're more than welcome to use the platform too.
Correct. We highly encourage student workers or volunteers to use the platform at no charge. The subscription cost is based on the official full-time equivalent or FTE count of the library, and it's an annual subscription. You would be working directly with CAVAL, so it's priced in Australian dollars, I believe CAVAL members receive a discount on that subscription as well. However, you don't have to be a CAVAL member to subscribe, but it is a good value if you plan to subscribe to the platform to just get a membership.
Anyone else?
Well, I'm excited to meet folks in person who will be attending VALA in a couple of weeks. It's the last time I visited was for VALA 2020. And I remember being in the Kiwanis Lounge on the way home, and I saw a headline that said 30% of the Australian students would not be returning for the foreseeable future. And it was when I realized that the COVID 19 pandemic was real. You all were quite ahead of the curve than we were in January 2020. So I'm excited to be back under much better circumstances and meet those of you who will be there in person.
So thank you so much, Tony, for joining us. And as Tony said, he will be at VALA, and CAVAL has a stand at VALA, and Tony will be hanging around there a little bit as well. So please do feel free to come by and ask any questions, or if you do have any questions that you would like answered straight away, please feel free to email caval@caval.edu.au. But with that, I'll give you 5 minutes back of your day. So thank you so much for joining us, and it was lovely to see you all. Thanks.